If someone missed the video in 8 parts, then a hint has been made for you in the upper right corner. At a meeting of UE teachers, it became known that the students' internships would be resumed in accordance with the requirements of the Safety Commission. Director Nezu suggested that perhaps the Commission knows about the impending disaster, and with this gesture they convey a hidden message to the heroes. It is also most likely related to the incident in Daiko. After the meeting, the students were informed about the internship, which will be their assignment for the New Year holidays. The Hawk in Flight talked to Dabi about the incident with the unsuccessful attack of Nomu, where Dabi suggested that he go to the dark side. But first he must prove his loyalty to the League and the entire antisocial world with his act. In this connection, the Hawk told the conversation of the State Commission, and now they will communicate in encryption. Then the Hawk decided to visit the best genes to inquire about his health. However, he attacked him instead and took his body for the League of Villains as proof of loyalty. Meanwhile, Todoroki suggested to Deku and Bakugo that they start an internship at the Prospector's agency, and they accepted. However, the Prospector himself perceived them as a complete set for his son Shoto, and according to his plan, he would only train Shoto, while the rest would simply have to keep up with his speed. The Prospector went to administer justice to the villainous Star Servant, who had created a giant ball of glass and decided to attack the city. However, the Prospector melted this ball and began to pursue the villain, where the Star Servant gang was already waiting for the Prospector at the next turn. Suddenly, Hawk appeared and easily knocked out the bandits. After capturing the villains, Hawk took out a book and gave it to the Endeavor to read individual highlighted words from different pages in it. The Prospector realized that the Hawk was behaving suspiciously, and therefore, in the office, he began to look through the book, where he drew attention to the second syllables. From the book, the Prospector found out that the Army of Liberation has gathered more than 100,000 villains, who in 4 months will make their move. However, Hawk will try to give a signal, but in the meantime, he asked to prepare more heroes. The Prospector realized that the Hawk and the State Commission already had some idea about the enemy, but they were working in secret. In this connection, the Prospector changed his mind, and therefore decided that Deku and Bakugo would be trained on an equal footing with Shoto. The Hawk himself went to the headquarters of the Liberation Army, where he had a meeting with the Round Table of the League of Villains and the leaders of the army. There they talked about the Commission and their investigation into the Daiko case, and after that he learned that in 4 months Shigaraki would strike and destroy everything. And also the villains do not know how much the strength of the school children has changed, and this only plays into the hands of the hero. Meanwhile, the Prospector told his trainees about the 3 main directions of the hero: rescue, evacuation, and battle. The minor believes that all these 3 points are important and equal. Therefore, in UEI, students are given knowledge, and already during the internship they gain experience. In this connection, the Prospector gave the same homework to Bakugo and Shota. They will need to work out the ability to accumulate and thicken their strength to automaticity. The goal is to learn how to immediately use maximum power. Deku will need to hone his power and not yet use the new power. Meanwhile, Uraraku and Asui train with the Dragon Riko. They took on the case of an explosion at an illegal trigger plant, a substance that enhances quirks. It turned out that the reagents for creating the drug were stolen, and the plant itself was blown up to cover their tracks. However, the hero Shelky and his team found a ship that was carrying a large incomprehensible cargo, and the heroes assumed that these were the same stolen reagents. But the bandits escaped with the help of an enhanced smoke quirk, and Silky turned to Ryuko for help, and she and the girls went to help him. In the evening, Silky and Asui discovered the smugglers and got on their ship. Ryuko and Nejiro took over cover from the sky and everyone else from the sea. On the ship, the seal was able to turn off 2 bandits. However, the 3rd bandit got into the plane, which was attached to the ship, and began to fly away. Then Uraraka was sent from a cannon to get a plane, and she managed to put the bandit to sleep. With the joint efforts of the team, they managed to safely land the plane with reagents, and the mission was successfully completed. It's been a week since the internship started. The guys continue to play catch-up with the Prospector, and they still cannot catch up with him, but they are already many times faster than on the first day. After that, Fuyumi invited Shoto and his friends to dinner through the Prospector. Natsuo also came there, and everyone began to eat. However, the tension between Natsuo and Endeavor did not allow this dinner to go smoothly, as at the table they began to discuss the complex relationship system of the Todoroki family. The prospector also lit a candle for his dead son Toya. After dinner, the prospector took the interns back to Yui, but before that, the psychopath Ending, who was released from prison, wants the prospector to send him to the next world, and therefore he kidnaps Natsuo. Ending throws it under the prospector's car with his quirk of controlling road markings. He wants to destroy Natsuo, so that in a rage, the prospector will destroy him. However, the interns get out of the car, and they all begin to attack the villain, while at this time the prospector stared at the floor due to the realization that he could lose his son. Ending is trying with all his might to attract the prospector's attention, and therefore throws up cars with people, whom Deku then catches with his quirk. Then Ending decides to put pressure on the patient, so he throws Natsuo under the bus. However, he is saved by Bakugo, and Ending himself is frozen by Todoroki. The prospector then approached the rescued Natsuo, who pushed him away. The miner begins a sweet speech, and in which he says that he wants to atone for his family and does not expect them to forgive him, and therefore he will give them a new house, and he himself will live in the old house. The internship of the guys came to an end, and the third quarter began. Aizawa and Mika were invited to the Tartar prison, where Tsukachi and Gran Torino told that Kurojiri was also Nomu, and Oboro Shirakumo became the basis for him. According to the results of the analyses, this is the deceased friend of Aizawa and Mika with whom they studied together and even planned to create agency. However, Oboro died during an internship. In this connection, Gran Torino suggested that most likely a league of villains took possession of his body, and they replaced the body during burning. Now the goal of Aizawa and Mika is to try to bring their friend to mind, because after they studied the Nomu that attacked the prospector and the hawk, it turned out that part of his consciousness was preserved, which is why he was looking for the strongest heroes. Aizawa and Mick then entered the room in front of Kurojiri. Aizawa tried to use his quirk, but the mist didn't disappear and Mick thought it was Kurojiri's true form. Aizawa then started to reminisce about the past, saying what a cool hero Oboro was. However, Kurojiri repeated that he did not understand what they were talking about, but Aizawa continued to remember the past. Kurojiri began to have erratic brain activity, where Oboro's face, which said the hospital, became visible. Aizawa understood what Oboro wanted to convey to them, since the hospital is where Kurojiri was born from Oboro's body. Then the hero began to think what kind of hospital. They also turned to the hawk and informed him about the hospital, but since he was next to Twice, he put down his phone and went to get drinks. However, when the hawk went out the door, he realized that after learning about the hospital, the puzzle had been completed. The mad scientist Kyudai Garaki was experimenting on Shigaraki, and in appearance is the doctor-like psycho who told Deku as a child that his quirk would never appear. A few months ago, Kurojiri and Shigaraki discussed the possibility of moving to the next level, since All for One was arrested. Kurojiri asked Shigaraki to give him the order to study the powerful power that All for One had left them. It turned out that this power was the Gigantomachia, who, upon seeing Shigaraki, said that he did not recognize him as the hare, since Shigaraki was weak. Then she started to attack them, but suddenly a doctor's voice appeared from the receiver, who explained that the Gigantomachi is an all-for-one bodyguard, and because he is very loyal to him, he is desperate because of the news about Shigaraki's successor, and in order to calm the giant, the doctor put out a recording of the voice All for One, and the doctor teleported the villains themselves to him. However, he gave himself a false name, and he also deliberately hid the location of his lair. The doctor introduced himself as an assistant to All for One, and he has new Nomu, which are many times stronger than the previous ones. But Kyudai does not yet trust Shigaraki, and therefore the new boss of the League must prove that he is worthy of his attention. Shigaraki started to recount moments from his childhood, but he remembers almost nothing, and because of random pictures, anger erupts in his mind, and he hates the whole world, and he wants the world to collapse, and then everyone can see the most beautiful horizon on the entire planet. Kyudai then explained that he planned to work with Shigaraki from the very beginning, but in order to finally make sure of him, Shigaraki must make the Gigantomachi recognize him. In this connection, the villains will go to deal with the giant, and Dabi will look for a good ally, while taking new Nomu to test them. For a month and a half, the League, along with Shigaraki, has been fighting non-stop all this time with a giant who does not eat at all and sleeps only for 3 hours, and the rest of the time he is chasing Shigaraki, and he finds him absolutely everywhere. Shigaraki himself does not sleep all this time, and the rest work in shifts. In one of 3-hour-long respite, Duran's phone received a call from Redestro, the supreme leader of the Liberation Army, who said that Duran was now being held hostage. To prove this, he sent them to watch the news, where they were talking about the fingers found in all the places where the League of Villains fought. These were the fingers of Duran, who was tortured, but he did not say anything and even managed to erase all the data from the phone. However, this did not help, since Redestro was able to recover the data, and now for the villains to listen to him. Redestro said that he is now watching them through satellites. If they decide to disobey him, then he will transmit their location data to the best heroes, and then the League of Villains will come to an end. He also said that the Liberation Army is almost ready for the great day for which they have been preparing for generations, and they already have more than 100,000 warriors at their disposal, and soon they will begin the battle for the liberation of the Overpeople. In this connection, he invites Shigaraki and his associates to be in the city of Deko in an hour, where they will release Duran and give the villain a choice, to fight and leave for another world from the Liberators, or to be caught by the heroes. Then Shigaraki came up with an ingenious plan in which they would need to hold out until the moment when the giant wakes up, which will then find Shigaraki already in Deko, and Shigaraki will send the giant to the Liberation Army. We are told the story of Chikara Yatsubashi, Akadestro, who, due to childhood neglect of his quirk, decided to fight for human rights to use his quirk for free, because this is one of the foundations of human rights. To fight for this ideal, he founded an army of equal use of superpowers and adopted the name Destro, promising to become a man who will return the former order. For several years they fought with the government, but lost. In this connection, he and all his supporters were imprisoned and the army disintegrated. While in prison, Destro wrote a book and then went to another world. However, he did not know that he had a child, the sane Redestro, who, having already taken the helm, found out about the League of Villains and the fact that they took too much attention to themselves, and he decided to destroy them in the name of Destro. Meanwhile, a League of Villains have arrived in Deko, who have gone to the city and are waiting for the awakening of the Gigantomachi, which was 2 hours away. In the city, they were met by Koku Hanabea and said that 90% of this city are members of the Liberation Army, and he also thanked the villains for coming as honored guests on their holiday. However, the main dish at this holiday will be the League of Villains, which began to be attacked by crowds of sufficiently strong warriors of the Liberation Army. Toga was attacked by Kizuki. Her quirk can turn any objects into mines with her touch. Then she began to interview Toga while simultaneously undermining her in various ways. In this connection, Toga had to turn into Uraraka. It turned out that Toga learned not only to turn into people, but also to use their quirks, as a result of which she lifted everyone above the ground with weightlessness, and then canceled the technique, and everyone collapsed to the ground from a great height. Toga liked the world that the Liberators want to create, but due to her lack of strength, she went to rest in a barn, where Twice found her, and they were attacked by a skeptic with a quirk of turning refrigerators into puppets, which he controls through a laptop and sensors. Then the puppets injured Twice's hands, but he was only happy about this because due to his mental disorder, he realized that he was real. Now, in order to protect his friends, he created a whole bunch of clones that began to multiply and destroy the army of Liberators, and the real Twice himself went to save Toga's life. He created a clone of her to give a blood transfusion. Meanwhile, Dabi battled Mega Ice, who has the ability to create and manipulate ice. Twice also appeared there, however, the Icy One destroyed a whole bunch of clones with 2 attacks. This was noticed by Compress, who came up with the idea of using it against Gigantomachia, which should wake up in 1 hour. However, the doctor heard this through the communication devices, and therefore woke the giant with an all-for-one voice. Gigantomachia by smell went after Shigaraki, who at that moment, together with the spinner, was saved by Twice. Then the boss asked the local Naruto to help him get to the tower where the army leader is. But it turned out that by this time one of the clones had already been able to get into this tower and create clones of Shigaraki and his assistants. However, they were easily destroyed with 1 finger by Redestro. But the copy of Shigaraki managed to hold on and survive, and they began to exchange attacks. During the battle, the leader would conduct his therapy for using quirks at any time without restriction. At that moment, the real Shigaraki appeared next to the tower and destroyed the building. However, everyone survived, and Redestro became a giant, as his quirk works from stress. The more stress, the more power. He grabbed Shigaraki's hands and began to hurt his fingers, while knowing that if Shigaraki touched with all his fingers, his quirk would work. At that moment, Shigaraki remembered his childhood. Shigaraki was still small. He had a family and his quirk had not yet manifested. He had a strict father, businessman Kitaro, who forbade his son Tenko to be a hero and punished him for disobedience. One day, his sister Hana revealed the secret that their grandmother is the hero Nana Shimura. She is the mother of their father Kitaro. Then Hana offered to be heroes in secret from her father. When Tenko was playing with a dog, his quirk accidentally worked on the ball. In the evening, the father found out that the children were in his office and found out about the heroine of the grandmother, but he said that she was an evil woman. As a result, for disobedience, the father raised his hand to Tenko and, as a punishment, again left him on the street. However, while his father was reading the letters sent once from his mother, who loved him, but could not be near, Tenko, sobbing in the street and hugging his dog, accidentally activated his quirk and split the dog without realizing it. At that moment, Khan's sister appeared, who, seeing the remains of the dog, started screaming and ran into the house. But Tenko ran after her, and she too became swollen at his touch. Then Tenko thought that they were attacked by some villain, since he had no idea that he was doing it himself. The whole Tenko family went out into the street, which in a fit of anger, the unthinking Tenko also sprayed. Then the father appeared, who, seeing all this, asked Tenko to stop and hit him, which caused even more aggression, as a result of which Tenko split him, as well as the house and the plot. And already after under the bridge, the confused Tenko extended his hand all for one, and he forever changed the life of Shimura Tenko. It was then that the devil's successor, Shigaraki Tamura, was born. All for One found out that Tenko has a strong propensity for destruction. In this connection, Tenko decided to take revenge on the old offenders, and All for One supported him in this. As a gift for the first destruction of Tenko, the hands of his family were given, and All for One said that Tenko held them close to the skin, and then he would not forget the feeling of that day with his family. The boss then officially renamed Tenko to Tamura, which translates to mourn, as he will now make others mourn, and Shigaraki is an All for One surname. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Tamura, since he can use his quirk without even using his 5 fingers, scratched Redestro free. Finally, Shigaraki realized that by destroying his family, he did not experience grief, but on the contrary, it became easier for him, and now he is free from family ties. At this time, Redestro was informed that an incredibly strong giant was approaching them. Redestro then decided to use 80% of his stress and attack Shigaraki with his quirk. However, he was able to incinerate his attack, and therefore Redestro turned on 100% of his quirk and attacked Tamura again. But with his memories refreshed, Shigaraki was able to stop this attack with ease. In this connection, Redestro donned armor and decided to use 150% of his quirk. However, he failed again, as Shigaraki was able to incinerate his attack while stripping him of part of his giant arm. Since Shigaraki has nothing more to lose, he will do whatever he wants, and therefore he began to destroy everything that was next to him. At that moment, Gigantomachi arrived, who was shocked at what Shigaraki was doing. As a result, Shigaraki destroyed half of the city. However, Redestro was able to survive as he injured his legs to keep him from being incinerated. Shigaraki approached him and said that there was no point in competing with him. After that, the Liberation Army appeared, which already wanted to start attacking Shigaraki, but Redestro stopped them and announced a new symbol of freedom, Shigaraki, who was able to let go of the burden of the history of blood ties. And in him he saw the chosen one who could lead the Liberation Army to freedom, and he bowed his head before him. Shigaraki himself accepted Redestro's offer, and now he manages the League of Villains and the Liberation Army, and Gigantomachi saw him as All for One and recognized him as his successor and master. As a result, this event was officially recognized as an attack by 20 villains on the city of Dako, who were destroyed by the locals. Midориуа himself was declared a hero, as he allegedly saved the owner of a large company, and during this heroic act he lost his legs. Meanwhile, a skeptic and Koku came to the headquarters of the Liberation Army at the tired members of the League of Villains, who invited them to a meeting, where Midoriua transferred his title of Commander-in-Chief to Shigaraki. And now the League of Villains and the Liberation Army have united under the new name Supernatural Liberation Front, and 9 people standing on the stage. Shigaraki made his first assistance. After the meeting, Shigaraki was contacted by a doctor. Since Shigaraki fulfilled the condition to be recognized by the Gigantomachie, the doctor will keep his word and give Shigaraki a new power. It also turned out that a hawk was present at this meeting, which through the body of the best genes was able to get a slot in the League of Villains. He met Dabi, and to himself began to think that the heroic world was in for hard times, and now he needed to figure out the Scout of Harm from the heroes, and until he figured him out, informed the prospector about the front early. However, he also cannot delay, because all of Japan is at stake. He also plans to find a hospital, and find out who is behind Shigaraki. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Shigaraki prepare to give the hare the gigantic power that the Doctor was developing for All for One. Before that, the Doctor asked why he needed even more power, because he can destroy anyone and even smash the whole city. Shigaraki replied that when he destroyed Daiko, his body could not stand it, and since now he takes the heroes seriously, he needs to become even stronger, and after that he is going to destroy All Might. Then the doctor said that 4 months of unbearable pain awaited him, and when he was reborn, he would receive everything he wanted, and even the power one for all, which All for One considered the only one that got out of control and went under slope. As a result, the doctor started the process. Meanwhile, at UI school, the students on robots show All Might what they've learned during their internships with various heroes. All Might then praised Bakugo and All Might for becoming stronger, and he also showed them the data collected on all the previous one for all power holders, except for the second and third about which he did not find information. All Might explained that the avatars were ordinary people who knew how to trust, and also added that Deku needs to move to a new level, and this is the study of Nana Shimura's quirk, flight. After that, Deku and Bakugo returned to the dorm and began to prepare for the graduation party and the beginning of the semester. Meanwhile, the Hawk gathers information about the upcoming battle for liberation, because that very day is already very close. The guys received a message that they will all participate in an expeditionary mission, where there will be a powerful battle with the villains. If you want to continue, then write about it in the comments. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, like and press the bell so as not to miss new videos. AniMap was with you. Bye everyone!